It's now 2023, and we are entering a new era in crypto and Cardano. We are no longer in the crazy speculative days of a 2021 bull market or even the waning decline of 2022. We're now firmly in the middle of crypto winter. The rallying cry is build, but just as important is what gets built. Devs can no longer focus on one-hitter quitter value extraction machines meant only to transfer wealth from retail to their own pockets, under the illusion that the dopamine hit of speculation is the same thing as a wise investment made. Projects can no longer be made only to satisfy retail's urge to speculate in order to achieve value extraction. As an ecosystem, we need to start demanding that projects deliver real utility in exchange for the value they extract. In this kind of market, satisfying the short-term speculative urge is not enough, and it was never healthy anyway. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss perspectives on a few light 2022 and 2023 macro themes, Atala Prism 2.0, the Coinbase app as an interesting indicator, crypto Twitter and transparency, Yoroi's 2023 plans, and a viewpoint on crypto synthetics. If you saw this image and immediately realized that our cybernetic friend there is holding a syringe of Cardanos that he has extracted from retail, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. And I am still on the hunt for sponsors. So if you'd like to sponsor one or more of the videos on this channel, please hit me up on Twitter. At this point, 3 days into 2023, you're probably fully aware that 2022 was extremely rough on the macro front. This poster points out 2022 is the worst year ever for stocks and bonds combined since 1871. And then they present this chart. 2022 has been an awful year for investors in both stocks and bonds. And they're kind of just plotting every year the combined stock and bond performance numbers. We got stocks on the x-axis, US bonds on the y-axis. And you can see 2022, according to this data, is clear down here. Nothing else is lower in terms of these combined numbers for stocks and bonds since 1871, according to this data that came from those sources that was circulated all over Twitter at the end of the year. So what did equities look like on their own? Well, we've got the S&P at negative 20%. You probably already know the NASDAQ was even worse at something like in excess of negative 33% for the year. No matter how you slice it, this was an extremely bad year for investments in stocks. Obviously, it's news to no one that 2022 was a very bad year if you were in stocks and or bonds. The only question is, could it get any worse? And some people are responding, yes, in 2023, you could decide to be in housing. This poster says, boom, 2023 will be housing, and posts this chart. You notice this is a chart showing the performance of housing in Fed tightening cycles. So they're not comparing the current cycle against the real estate crash following 2007. They're just showing it during the Fed tightening cycles currently in 2015, 2004, 99, 94, 83, and 77. But even when you look at it in this context, and this isn't price, this isn't home values, this is single family home sales. So this is change in existing single family home sales. But even in the context of Fed tightening cycles, you can see that this is indeed a very different housing slowdown in terms of single family home sales. So while 2022 seemed like it couldn't possibly get any worse unless you time travel back to 1871, some people are indicating that they think it could get worse if you decide to be in housing in 2023. So stocks and bonds sucked in 2022. Some people are predicting a very bad 2023 for real estate, but where does that leave crypto? I think we're in that kind of market where the whole space needs to switch from a speculative, dopamine satiating mindset to a more reasonable utility seeking mindset. I think the whole space needs to start demanding that projects not just satisfy that little speculative dopamine trigger that makes you fantasize about all of the crazy gains you're going to make in a short amount of time. We need to switch from that mindset that just seems to satisfy our brain's craving for dopamine. We need to switch from that over to a longer term mindset. It's not so much about dopamine, a more rational mindset that's about how much utility projects are actually bringing to an ecosystem. And I mean, we can be sort of, broader minded and think about the crypto space as a whole. But let's face it, crypto's pretty tribal. And I'm pretty, I mainly think about Cardano. I think about the entire space, but I think a lot about Cardano specifically. This is a Cardano channel. And I know many of you also think a lot specifically about Cardano. And I think in each of these ecosystems, in each of the major crypto ecosystems, people need to start demanding that the projects in their ecosystem provide an equal amount of utility separate from any sense that you might have that speculation is utility. We need to separate out the speculative utility of a project and think about it in terms of every other type of utility it's offering. And in some cases that will be zero. In some cases the additional utility beyond just speculation that a project is offering is actually zero. In fact, that's a lot of the projects. A lot of the projects we had in the last bull cycle, all they did was offer an asset and the possibility that number goes up. Sure, there were auxiliary things tied to that asset. Sometimes they were cartoons that you could use as a PFP. Sometimes it was membership in a community. But we need to start measuring those things and thinking, how much utility is there really in those additional auxiliary things that are separate from the number goes up argument? Because we seem to be in a different type of market. I think everybody would agree this is a very different type of market than the one we encountered in 2021 and the one that was waning and receding and dropping and falling in 2022. We're now firmly in this crypto winter thing. And we need to start thinking about what utility projects actually offer to the ecosystem. They're all extracting, I mean, maybe not all of them, but the vast majority are extracting a certain amount of value. What we need to ask ourselves as a Cardano ecosystem is what new or additional utility are they offering to the ecosystem? And if they're extracting way more value than the utility they're offering beyond just mere speculation, then maybe we need to demand more. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe in this kind of market, that's not enough. Maybe we need more utility. I actually don't think that's a maybe. I actually think it's a necessity. If we want to grow beyond the adoption we currently have with the mainstream, which is almost none, if we want to grow beyond what we are today, we have to move toward utility. The speculation thing that will always exist in crypto like it does in all markets. It'll always be there, but it needs to be just a piece, just a small piece of what's going on. And the much larger piece needs to be utility. If we want to get to that place where we have a role in mainstream society, where we're actually doing something that the mainstream can embrace, we need to move toward utility and away from the speculation thing. If we ever want this to be about more than just the small number of us who are inside crypto and inside Cardano right now, we need to demand more utility. That is my dearest wish for Cardano in 2023. And I think it's actually possible via developments like this one. Here's Tony Rose, head of product for Atala at IOG. His post says Prism 1.4 has been live and in beta with Pioneers and Astros. Prism V2 is coming online Q1. And then he gives you the website so you can stay in the loop. So this is interesting. It's, I think, long been speculated by a lot of people in Cardano that Atala Prism could bring something very refreshing to the crypto table. Cardano via via the real world utility that could grow out of an Atala Prism or something that looks a lot like it, Cardano could bring something fresh to the table. I think one of the things that got a lot of us really interested in Cardano in the early days was the prospect of some of these Atala Prism based projects, like the project with the Ministry of Education in Ethiopia. This has been a big part of the real world focus of Cardano. And I think now it's been enough time. I'm hoping we're coming to a next iteration in this real world utility in Cardano. And I don't know if that's going to come out of a tall prism or somewhere else, but I think it's going to be this line of thinking, this line of thought about real world utility that might present the next evolution for Cardano. And I don't know that we'll necessarily reap the rewards of that in 2023. But I think we can begin this buildup to actually reap the rewards of this type of real world utility if we continue really building that out in 2023 and 2024. And it might be beyond those 2 years that we see the real rewards from this. But if we're going to be building, I don't think we should build more perpetual value extraction machines that provide little more than satisfaction of that dopamine urge via speculative dreams. I think we need to build these kinds of real world utility based projects. Speaking of well established, long known Cardano projects, here we have a post from Yoroi wallet. You probably know Yoroi was one of the original light wallets in the Cardano ecosystem. We pretty much had Daedalus and we had Yoroi, and there was like one other light wallet that was really used by people in any numbers that I know of, at least. But Yoroi was a very popular wallet in the early days because Daedalus is a full node wallet. So we had a an another choice, another option, and that was the Yoroi Light Wallet. Since then, a lot of people have moved on to other light wallets like Eternal and Nami. We've got like more than half a dozen good light wallets in the Cardano ecosystem. So there's a lot of choice now. So a lot of people haven't thought about Yoroi in a long time, but we have seen sort of a resurgent emergo over the last couple of months. We've now got a social media platform from Emergo that's already up and running. We've got this promise of a new stable coin from Emergo, which was kind of a big surprise at the end of the year in 2022. Now we're seeing this from Yoroi. We're thrilled for 2023. A lot is planned for Yoroi, including Yoroi Better and Best dates, where we will implement significant upgrades for performance, quality of life, and aesthetics. Look forward to hearing more in the coming weeks. Happy New Year. I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know if Yoroi at this point will be competitive with the light wallets that people are using more often these days, what it's going to be. But I'm happy in any case just to see a resurgent Emergo, one of the founding entities of Cardano, doing so much stuff all of a sudden. Here's an interesting point about adoption of the Coinbase app. This poster says something that has a 100% hit rate. When Coinbase becomes the #1 app in the world, you have about 1 to 2 weeks to sell everything before doom begins. This happened basically at every major cycle top: January 18, May 21, and November 21. Here's another good point about crypto Twitter and transparency. Welcome to the world of alternative finance, where billionaire platform operators have discussions previously reserved for boardrooms in lawyers' offices, now in public, so that retail clients know their position and what they are fighting for. If nothing else, it's interesting. And this was all in the context, and I kind of paraphrase that because the grammar was a little bit awkward, but this is all in the context of the current fight going on between the Winklevoss twins, and Barry Silbert of DCG. Very interesting kind of pan crypto issue. If you want to dive into this, you can find this on the timelines of either Cameron Winklevoss or Barry Silbert. If you want just a small taste of what this looks like, Cameron Winklevoss posts an open letter to Barry Silbert about the matter of $1.675 billion between DCG and its wholly owned subsidiary Genesis, which he says is money that Genesis owes to Earn, which is why Winklevoss, the Winklevi, are interested. Barry Silbert says DCG did not borrow $1.675 billion from Genesis. Cameron says, there you go again. Stop trying to pretend that you and DCG are innocent bystanders. He says, will you or will you not commit to solving this by January 8th in a manner that treats the $1.1 billion promissory note as $1.1 billion? This is the kind of stuff that we weren't necessarily privy to back in the old days. In the traditional days, we weren't really privy to this kind of stuff. This is one of the beautiful things. People would call some of the behavior that happens in crypto Twitter toxic, but I personally do enjoy this elevated level of transparency. Back in the old days, we simply, maybe in some very limited cases, but in most cases, we simply wouldn't have this level of transparency into discussions like this between figures like this. Finally, let's have another one of those discussions, not about what I wish were true, but about what I think is probably true. I wish that the way we're currently trading synthetic assets, representing things like Tesla stock and Apple stock, I wish that that were a situation that was going to be tolerated by regulators and governments. But I think this poster is probably right when he says, people already forgot that the SEC let a score of algo stablecoins bloom, but was right on top of Mirror Protocol when it created synthetic Tesla, Apple, etc. This is a very bad idea. The US government will not tolerate a thing that directly threatens traditional market integrity. He says also, we just don't need this stuff, and it's not DeFi. You can make tokens into stock certificates. You need the issuer's consent, though. I think he's probably right, just based on what's happened so far. And he has a whole article here about tokenizing corporate capital stock, doing what he described here, making tokens into stock certificates, which is something that I think he's right, can't be done permissionlessly. It's going to have to be done with the issuer's consent. But the example he gives here is consistent with what he's saying, in my opinion. So if you don't remember what happened between the SEC and Mirror Protocol, this article might help. This article is called Do Kwon Appeal Overruled, Must Comply with SEC Investigation into Mirror Protocol. The CEO and founder of Terraform Labs, Do Kwon, has been ordered to comply with subpoenas issued by the SEC in February. This is an article from June 2022, and they're talking about subpoenas that were issued by the SEC in February. So you're probably thinking to yourself, wait, no, this is all wrong. The problem with Terra Luna was the stablecoin. The thing that messed up the whole crypto landscape was the stablecoin, but it was Mirror Protocol, a synthetics protocol that the SEC was interested in here. You're correct. While Terra Luna was on course to tear apart the entire crypto landscape with the dramatic failure of their algorithmic stablecoin, what the SEC was interested in was not that stablecoin, but the Mirror Synthetics protocol. It's also important to note here that Do Kwon was not a US person and Terraform Labs was not a US based company. The court said the SEC was justified in subpoenaing Kwon and Terraform Labs based on the company's marketing and promotion to US consumers, retention of US based employees, contracts with US-based entities, and business trips to the US, all of which related to the Mirror Protocol and digital assets at issue in the SEC's investigation. So you don't even need to be US-based. If you are a crypto synthetics platform, the SEC is probably going to feel perfectly justified in going after you if you have any contact whatsoever with any US-based person or any other dealings with the US. I hope everybody had a great New Year's Eve. I hope you're having a great New Year, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.